Just a big overview of where we are. I'm not sure where we are, but anyway, that's where we're going. Don't know what this was, whether somebody did some remodeling or whatever, but there we are. Like a couple of 3 supporting walls and then one big one in the back. And whether that was for the purpose of supporting part of the column or not, I don't know. Or maybe it was done later, who knows. This is just a close-up view underneath one of the arches. And the bridge here between the arches was built in 17 something or other. What was interesting is it's built so that there's a very narrow area that for people to walk or move, or wagons couldn't go there, it wouldn't seem. And most of it is not usable, which makes it curious as to why it was built in the first place. Just a question. Here it's interesting to look at what I'd call the keystone, except that rather than being a keystone, it appears to be 5. And notice how they're locked in up at this juncture here. In contrast, the ones up above look like they're all the same. So what kind of a mathematical, technological difference was there? And as my English friend points out, assuming I'm not insulting her by saying English, guess not.
No, you're not insulting me.
The middle stone is, in fact, the keystone. You can see it side sloping inward as it goes, as the sides go down. This was part of the approach coming in from the side of the aqueduct, actually, as it continued down towards Nimes. There would have been an arch here, but whether it was high or whether this is the aqueduct, I don't know. It looks like this was the top of the aqueduct, and that those slabs that we see here formed the trough way, and it did its right angle turn across this little gulch and then over to the aqueduct, or the bridge across the river. It's interesting to wonder whether this wall of brick here was added at a later time, either by the Romans or by even later periods. But notice the angling in there, right where we were. Yep.
So there was another tunnel.
See, now the interesting question is, here's a slab that looks like it's a continuation of the path. But here's a tunnel that would have really given an easy elevation to the bridge. The question is, if not this tunnel, which we think was created later, was there a second tunnel somewhere or a different route that we can't find to the right here? See, this looks like where the channel came in from, maybe wrapping around the hill to the left of that tunnel entrance that we saw down there. We don't know, probably buried under who knows how much dirt. What's interesting is to look at this slab and realize the slab was carved to be a 90 degrees, a long 90-degree curve. That's pretty interesting. And then here we are looking down the aqueduct. Notice the carving of the rocks at the bottom, or at the stonework at the bottom, to make it curved, assuming that that's original. The bridge ties into the rock, presumably bedrock. It'd be interesting to know what kind of treatment they did, whether they hollowed it out. I'm sure they did, to square off a platform for it. I think the fascinating thing about this is all the questions that are asked. Is this dressing to the stone? It looks like it would be. Certainly too different to be erosion, and yet different kinds of dressing. As I focus more tightly along the center line here that supports the upper smaller arches, you can see how apparently there is some subsidence in the ground underneath the bridge, causing this gentle warping in that stone that goes along there. It's interesting to wonder what these blocks are that stick out here. Here most of them are preserved, so the weather probably came from the other direction and these got preserved, but it's interesting to wonder if they served a function other than decoration. Just a little bit of a view, give you some idea of the height, although it's much higher than I am, probably 40, 50, 60 feet. I'm underneath one of the bottom arches that still has its foot on the land, and probably bedrock there. But it looks pretty obvious from here that in the main, the portion to the left, the four big blocks, were probably part of the original construction. So to answer that question, it did have a quasi-bridge, if you will, as part of the structure. The piers did not stand alone. And then this was built then in the 17th century to provide a working bridge that's wide enough for all kinds of activity. This spot looks like it might have held some inscription at one time. I also wonder if the original engineers had that channel excavated out to ensure that the water was put into one controlled area. And the rest of those pillars could be built on a little bit higher bedrock. It just intrigues me what these square or rectangular holes were. They're on several of the arches, but on some they're not. But it's always symmetrical as to which arch they're on. One last item that I didn't catch was this railing. It wasn't on the other side. And probably gave extra height to the aqueduct. I don't know what this Roman structure is. I'll have to see if I can find it in the guidebook when I get home. It's across the street from Bodil Church, St. Bodil. Don't know what the inside is, what that well, it looks like it'd be a well hole, but I don't really know. Maybe these were some fountains or something. This is where I got my baguettes with made out of wheat bread, which was really neat to take on my last day down to the Jardin with the fountains. Might help if I got it in the direction that was visible. Looks like a palm tree. This is entitled The Pilot.